In October 2025, Nigeria found itself in one of those uneasy moments when reports emerged that about 16 military officers had been detained over an alleged plot to topple the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What happened, as the available report shows, was made to cause chaos and violently change the government at the center. In this report, I will tell you about the recent coup rumors in Nigeria, the historical context of all the coups in Nigeria, and why this is critical. Welcome to this edition of Hispool Media. My name is Gabriel Adidia. In mid-October 2025, multiple local media sources citing unnamed defense sources reported that about 16 army officers had been detained on suspicion of taking part in a coup plot. The report described tentative planning, alleged meetings, and even a date being discussed for the action. But within a short span, the military's public posture shifted. The Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, denied the news report, which was initially released by Sahara reporters. They called the media claims inaccurate and framed the detained personnel as facing disciplinary probes rather than any evidence of an organized attempt to seize power. The federal government, through the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, publicly supported the military's denial, while the defense headquarters announced internal investigation. The result was a swell of alarm, skepticism, and political hand-wringing across Nigeria. But why did the story land with such force? The answer may not be far-fetched. Let me now tell you the whole story. A moment before we continue, let me invite you to like this video and subscribe to Hispool Media. It will help this video to reach more people. Thank you. This is partly because Nigeria is not new to the language of coups. Between independence and the return of continuous civilian rule in 1999, the country experienced repeated military interventions, both violent and non-violent, that reshaped politics, governance, and civic memory. The first major rupture came on January 15, 1966, when a group of young army officers led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nziogu, Emmanuel Ifeajuna, and Adewale Ademoyega carried out a coup that killed senior politicians and military officers and set in motion a chain of events that would lead to a counter-coup, ethnic reprisals, and ultimately a civil war. Those earliest coups imprinted a fear and a reality. The state could be remade overnight by force. In 1975, power changed hands once again when Brigadier Murtala Muhammad removed General Yakubu Gowon in a bloodless palace coup. Murtala Muhammad's tenure was brief and dramatic. He had intended reforms, both economic and military, and a return to democratic rule. But in February 1976, he himself was killed in an unsuccessful coup attempt. The coup, which was led by Lieutenant Colonel Bukar Sukar Dimka, was put down hours after the president was assassinated or was killed. In the 1980s and the 1990s, the pattern of coups and counter-coups continued. The country witnessed the rise of generals like Muhammadu Buhari and Ibrahim Babangida through military coup d'etats. In the same era, the notorious April 1990 coup attempt led by Major Gideon Oka saw a soldier seize radio stations in Lagos and broadcasted a secessionist proclamation. Shortly after the plotters seized the airways, they announced the accession of 5 northern states from being part of Nigeria until certain conditions are met. The failed effort ended with the arrest, trial, and execution of some of the ringleaders of the coup. Those historical episodes remind any listener that coups are never merely about meeting rooms or one barracks. There are expressions of grievances, ambitions, and the fractures that run through society. So, when news arrived in the past week about detained officers, most Nigerians reacted through that long lens. Many asked the question, are these men disgruntled by pay and promotion? Are they loyal to a faction, be it political, ethnic, or religious as the case may be? Or Are they responding to the perception that political power has become corrupt or captured? Well, modern coup plots rarely read like the plot lines of fiction. They often begin in military mess halls and briefing rooms and with conversations about slowness of promotion, perceived political exclusion, and fear that civilian governance cannot address security or economic concerns. The pattern is visible in both recent allegations and in historical record. Journalists and analysts emphasize that for now, the claims around the October arrest remain unverified in any public legal filing, and that the military had so far described the matter in disciplinary terms while ordering a probe. But should we believe them? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Meanwhile, there are also political dynamics at play. In the weeks and months leading up to the allegation, Nigeria has been battling multiple crises, including persistent insurgency and banditry across large swaths of the north and the northwest, localized political unrest in oil-producing states, and contentious court cases and protests in the capital, Abuja. These are the kind of pressures that amplify fear and that can be used by actors in government and opposition alike to score political points. However, some commentators warn that the coup narrative can be weaponized and be used to intimidate opposition figures, to distract from government failures, or to justify security crackdowns. If you are a keen follower of Hispo media, you will observe that Nigeria as a nation is riddled with such examples in our past. Other voices called for caution, insisting that inventing a coup where none exists has its own consequences. It has the potential to undermine public confidence in both media and other government institutions. In the meantime, the immediate story is centered on the alleged detained officers and the military's investigation. According to reports in online spaces and social media, the defense headquarters said it has detained about 16 officers for indiscipline and breach of service regulations, and that a panel would investigate the matter. Some outlets, however, published more detailed but unverified claims linking the detained officers to political actors, even to a former state governor under scrutiny. A thief reported that one detained officer is a relation of the former governor of Nasarawa State, Tanko Almakura. Other reportage and fact checks urge readers to differentiate between leaks and verified facts. Media outlets and social platforms were circulating names and videos that authorities had not confirmed. At Hispo Media, however, we want to desist from mentioning names that have not been confirmed by authorities, but we'll keep you posted if any verified information is available. Meanwhile, history offers a set of uneasy lessons. Military interventions in Nigeria's past frequently followed a logic of perceived national emergency or elite failure. In 1966, the stated motives mixed anti-corruption rhetoric with ethnic grievances. In 1975 and 1976, they mixed policy dispute and palace politics. In the 1980s and the early 1990s, economic collapse and sidelining of civilian institutions fueled interventionist thinking. The Gideon Oka attempt of 1990 uniquely included openly secessionist language. These precedents matter because they shape both how politicians respond and how the public reads such events. Any credible allegation of a coup must therefore be judged not only by its immediate path, but by the structural pressure, politics, economics, identity, military morale, and public perception that may make such allegations plausible. But there is another part of the modern story, the post-1999 experience. After decades of military rule, the country returned to civilian rule, and despite recurring crises, it has managed to sustain it. A successful coup in the 21st century would not merely reorder domestic elite, it will face broad regional and international backlash. But since 2020, West and Central Africa have seen a fresh wave of coups in neighboring countries, and regional bodies such as ECOWAS have grown quicker to condemn military takeovers and threaten sanctions. That external context raises the stakes and a cost for any group contemplating overthrowing a civilian administration today, and it also helps to explain why governments are so sensitive to any rumor of military coup. For ordinary Nigerians, the immediate effects of the October allegations were practical and psychological. Markets, transport arteries, and offices briefly slowed in some areas as uncertainty spread. Political actors issued statements, some denouncing the prospect of military seizure, others demanding the parade and naming of alleged plotters. Civil society organizations warned that unproven claims could be used to clamp down on dissent. And for families of the detained officers, there was a very human anxiety of their loved ones' faith. So, where does this leave us as narrators and as citizens? First, the public must treat unverified information with caution. The strongest report to date documents detention and the opening of an internal military investigation. There has, however, been no completed criminal case or a public demonstration of a coordinated coup attempt by these people. A transparent investigation, independent courts, and clear public evidence would be the benchmark that turn allegation into legal truth. Until then, the country lives in the uncomfortable middle ground between rumors and proof. Second, with the historical warnings, coups do not happen in a vacuum. If there is in due course a finding of intent or organization, analysts will ask the familiar questions: what grievances were at work? Which political factions stood to gain? Was there regional or ethnic motivation, or merely career frustration? And critically, how did the state's failings, from insecurity in part of the country to economic strain in the cities, create a condition where a portion of the armed forces might consider a coup d'etat? Until those questions are fully investigated, the October episode may be difficult to situate in the context of military coups in Nigeria. Finally, since 1999, Nigerians have overwhelmingly chosen civilian rule, even as they continue to grapple with poor service delivery and insecurity. That enduring preference for ballot over bullet is a civic asset that must be protected even at these trying moments. If institutions handle October allegations with transparency, if due process replaces sensationalism, and if political actors resist from turning security scares into political cover, then the episode can be absorbed into the democratic test Nigeria may have had to face before. In the end, what matters for historians and for citizens is what the official record says once the dust settles. For a complete coverage of all the coups in Nigeria's history, please click here. Remember to like this video and subscribe to Hispo Media if you have not done so already. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.